The short answer is a lot. But it does take time, and parents today are phenomenally busy, and they need to sit down together and talk about this issue, about how we can. Now, hopefully, a lot of schools will be helping. If I may just link back to something I referred to earlier in a different video, and that's talk homework. I do believe that every school should be sending home at least one, quite possibly two pieces of talk homework a week. I think there should be a whole school topic, which is launched in assembly in a primary school, of probably something that's going on in the news, or something that's affecting the community, or something that's changing in school, something that the school has become involved in, a famous person that's been on television. It could be anything at all. It could be a recent movie or an event that's happened. And the children will go home with a little slip of paper that says, my homework tonight is to talk with you about. And then it says what it is. And then the next day when they come back to school, there's just 5-10 minutes for children to share quick opinions on what they heard at talk homework last night. Or in primary schools, we could set up a talk lunchtime. More of that another day. The second talk homework, if there are 2 a week, is ideally set by the class teacher the night before they want the children to do independent writing in the classroom. So they go home with a slip of paper again. My homework tonight is to talk with you about whether school uniforms should be banned from schools, or to talk with you about whether we should stop flying on aeroplanes because it's polluting the atmosphere. And then there's a role for parents straight away to realise that their contribution to the talk of the children is important. But I do think that schools that do that need to induct the parents. Because you see, today, many families don't sit down together. And when I grew up, there was no television. We sat most of the day and the night around the kitchen table. In the evening we pulled the chairs around the fire. In the daytime we sat at the table. Sadly, there was an ashtray in the middle of the table, because that was what you did in those days. There was a milk bottle, didn't dirty the milk jug. There was a sugar bowl, and there was a teapot which had a nice woolly hat on to keep the tea inside warm. And we spent our days there at the weekend, arguing, discussing, debating, doing our homework, all seated around the same table. In the evening, seated around the fire, reading books and knitting at the same time, and listening to the radio, all at the same time. 4 girls in our family who could multitask. And all of a sudden, someone would burst out laughing, and we'd all say, what are you laughing at? And they'd read this little bit out of their book, and we'd all laugh, and then we'd all go back to reading again. But those things don't happen anymore. Children grow up very often on independent activities in front of technology. They have iPads. My own grandchildren have them, all of them. And they love them, and I love them. And I love playing on both on the mobile phone and on my laptop. But they must make time for the family. We must have at least twice a week times when all the family are encouraged to be there, and we sit down together. Let's take a meal together. Let's bring back sitting around the dinner table and having a meal together and talking. Talk homework is a great first stimulus, but let's talk about our days. Let's talk about how things work. Now, I know, as well as all of you, if you say to your child, well, how was your day today? Fine. What did you do in school today? Nothing. Did you do it well? Yes. And that's how the conversation goes. So the first thing is you have to get rid of the technology. This has to be a technology-free session. It would be nice if it was eating, because that's a social occasion and most people are reasonably happy when they're eating. But instead of asking the child how their day was at school, you create what you call, let's talk about our daytime, and I will start and I'll tell a funny story from my day and then ask if anyone else saw anything funny happen at school today. And then we can extend it to, let's play a silly thing happened to me today. And we all make up something that happened today, not something true. There was a great period of time when I used to give the children news to write. You're not supposed to give them news anymore, but there's nothing wrong with news, because we talk news on a Monday morning like we used to in the olden days, but we called it a silly thing happened this weekend. And you made it up. You had to make it up. And it had to be obviously silly. So I could sit there and say, well, I was sitting watching Coronation Street and all of a sudden I became aware there was a knocking on the door. So I went to the door and I opened it, and you'll never guess who was standing there. It was the Queen. And there was her coach and her horses standing at the bottom of the steps. And I said, hello, Mum, how are you? And she said, I'm fine, thanks, but can I use your loo? Because I'm pretty desperate. And I said, of course you can, Your Majesty. It's upstairs at the top of the left. Mind how you go now. And she said, I will, thank you. And don't you think that was an incredible thing to have? It did make me wonder, how does the Queen go to the toilet when she's in that carriage all day trotting around London? Does she pop in people's houses? So now your challenge is to make up something even sillier that might have happened to you over the weekend. And we all go around telling our silly stories and we have a good laugh, and then we can write silly news. You could even call it fake news. And slowly build up the love of talk with your children again, because we are losing that ability. Every time the children are with you anywhere, whether you're going to the supermarket, to the doctor's surgery, you're on a journey in the car, all of these are opportunities to talk. When you're in the supermarket, you can talk about the products. You can be picking things up and looking at where they come from and countries that you don't even know where they are, or maybe you do know something about them and you can talk about them with some knowledge. When you're at the doctor's, there's always posters on the wall, there's magazines on the table. You can make up games, you can play games in the car, play word games, play those games that we all used to play of. How many boys' names can we think of beginning with A, beginning with B, beginning with C? How many vegetables? How many fruit? How many capital cities? So you start with the simple things and you build it up to the harder things. And then play wow word games. I'm going to say a wow word and the first person to guess what it means. Or can you use it correctly in a sentence? So I'm going to use the word convoluting. Does anyone know what it means? Okay, have a guess. Okay, I'll put it in a sentence. It was a very long and convoluting speech that went on for such a long time that I completely lost the thread, and it was going here and it was going there, and I've no idea at the end what he was talking about. Can you guess what convoluting meant? And then I might have to break it down. So I've got to come up with different creative ways of playing word games with the children. But never, ever, ever missing the opportunity to develop a conversation. We must not lose the art of conversation. And I beg you, at the weekend, as well as twice a week during the week for talk homework, take one meal together. It can be fish and chips, of course it can. I love fish and chips and I love pot noodle too. But just sit down together and have a jolly good chat.